and welcome to week 14 of the 2KU season and the 2KU weekly podcast. I'm Type A Joy 101, joined by my co-host Danny V and Pig Bear. And folks, buckle up. This is it. This is the time of year you prove yourself. I just noticed the logos I sent you are in there.
Yep.
Uh, this
Shut
is
up.
this is this is a big week for everybody right now. Of course, you have Thanksgiving, you have Black Friday. I'm having surgery done, dental surgery on Tuesday. When it comes Saturday, it's rivalry week. Some of the biggest games in college football. Some of the stuff that's the first matchups you think of when you think of college football are coming up on Saturday, on this coming Saturday, as well as Thursday and Friday. We've got the full slate for you. But first, let's talk about the week that just happened. How are you two doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Besides my internet problems on Saturday, was doing pretty good.
Big Bear?
I'm doing great.
All right. Real quick, we're gonna blaze through these next games, or for our games from last week, because we got a lot to talk about. Pardon me. Choking on food. Sorry. Oh, that was almost a great catch. Let's quickly run through these games, starting with the games we got on stream last night. Let's start with the Sunflower Showdown. Kansas State improving to 9-2 with the 17-7 win over the now 7-4 Kansas Jayhawks. Meanwhile, in Ames, Iowa State fell 21-17 to Oklahoma State, who improves to 9-2, fighting off a potential losing skid. But now, that leaves the Big 12 North up to Farmageddon between Iowa State and Kansas State. BYU also has a chance to make it as well. But if K-State were to win that game, they move on to the conference championship. Iowa State wins. They need BYU to lose also, I believe. Danny, what are your thoughts on these two matchups?
Uh, it was a great matchup between these guys. I mean, Iowa State really kept it close against Oklahoma State, so definitely great job. Snowstorm up there by the Midwest, so hopefully all those people stay warm, nice and toasty, but great games.
IRL, the snow's not here yet, but it's on the way. We got close the other day, though. Pig Bear?
Great Midwest snowstorm and the great Big 12 shakeup. Let's just see how it ends out.
Up next, the Old Brass Spittoon, which we played on Saturday. Indiana now 9-2 with the 20-17 win over Michigan State. The Hoosiers now with an outside chance of making the Big Ten championship. Thoughts?
Yeah, Indiana, they're playing really well. They're playing a great job, and who knows what will happen to them next. Hopefully, they can sneak their way into the Big Ten championship.
Pig
Maybe.
Bear?
Hey, the Hoosiers are alive. It's a miracle, some would say.
All right. Meanwhile, two Big East matchups we want to touch on. First, Friday night game, which decided the Big East North 20-17. Temple beats Rutgers, improves to 8-3, and makes their second Big East championship in 3 years. They won the championship back in 2022, and now they're set up for the winner of another matchup we'll get to. Starting with USF, could have clinched with a win on Saturday. They did not. They lost 24-17 in overtime to West Virginia, who improves to 8-3. West Virginia not eligible for championship contention, but always fun to play spoiler. Now the Big East South comes down to USF and Cincinnati. Cincinnati needs UCF to beat USF in the War on I-4. USF, it's a win and in situation. Thoughts on these Big East games, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, USF choking to West Virginia, that's something big. Big congratulations to the West Virginia fans on senior night, so definitely good job to them. Better luck next time USF. Hopefully this weekend will go better for you, or maybe not. Hopefully not for me.
Pig Bear?
Yeah, West Virginia getting it done for the last time in Millen Pusker. Just good job for them getting it done. And hey, we got a very interesting rivalry week matchup.
We'll talk about that from our games of next week. To the SEC, we got a couple games to talk about, starting with Tennessee. Starting with Tennessee, Georgia. Georgia upsetting the Vols 41-34. I believe with that was what put Tulane into the conference championship. They got to win this week. 47-35 over Ole Miss. The Tulane Green Wave are locked into a championship bid. They played in the game last season, lost to Florida. They have not won the championship since 2002. Meanwhile, Tennessee, now the outcome is a bit out of their hands with this loss to the Georgia Dogs. Meanwhile, Auburn, with a 34-27 win over Vanderbilt, now jumps into second in the conference. The overtime win puts Auburn with the highest odds of the three teams still in contention in the SEC to make it to the title game. Tennessee is right behind them, and Vanderbilt. Tennessee Vandy, of course, playing next week. Auburn has Alabama, naturally. Thoughts on this SEC trifecta, Danny?
This is gonna be a fun trifecta for the SEC. Hopefully things will play out. Let's see how the ball bounces for these.
Pig Bear?
Chaos.
Chaos ball, indeed. Let's now move from the south to the north. The Northeast's Ivy League was decided with a 23-7 win over Penn. Harvard claims their 28th Ivy League championship. We didn't get enough of a chance to talk about this squad this year, but they have quietly played very well. One win away from a 10-win season to be their first since 2020. The Harvard Crimson, of course, with that big win over then undefeated Columbia. And now with this win, have clinched an Ivy League championship, snapping the Columbia Lions streak. Harvard, of course, one of the most historic programs in all of college football. There's an interception. What are your thoughts on them winning this league, Danny?
Yeah, Harvard, they have always been like one of those like sneaky teams who could usually pull off an upset or two, and they finally got it here against number one, beating Columbia to take the number one and then clinching it with the win against Penn. Good job for them.
This is a team who could have been a lot better, because those two losses are to Ohio State and Duke. They went undefeated in conference. Well, not yet, of course. They still have to play their arch rival Yale. But they could clinch a 10-win season with the win over their arch nemesis. Pig Bear?
Good job, Harvard.
Up next, let's talk some Mountain West ball. First off, San Jose State, 37-10, win over Cullen Payton in Caldwell, Idaho. The San Jose State Spartans now improve to 11-0 and officially lock themselves in to the Mountain West Championship. Meanwhile, out in the Mountain Division, 23-17, Boise State got a win over Utah State. The Broncos improved to 8-3. They could have clinched, depending on the results in Fort Collins. And how about Colorado State with the 30-22 win to get the Ram Falcon Trophy off of their rival Air Force, knocking the Air Force Falcons, who started 8-0, now down to 8-3. The Rams win, and with that win, Boise State is now locked in to the championship game. We'll talk more about their situation later. Thoughts on the Mountain West, Danny?
Yeah, the Mountain West, we all thought it was going to be Air Force for a while. They were playing really well, and here they are slowly choking away.
Pig Bear?
I mean, it's been a year of parity, complete freaking parity, and I'm just glad to see chaos ensuing.
Chaos has ensued. This is, of course, the Broncos' final year in the conference. It's San Jose State's first. All right. Up next, we'll talk a little more about Big Ten action. Iowa getting a 15-10 win to take the Heartland Trophy back over Wisconsin. Whiskey falling to 7-3. Iowa still has a dark horse's chance of making the conference championship. All they need to do is beat a Minnesota team who has not first thing they got to do, beat a Minnesota team who has not been playing their best football this year. We'll talk to Danny a bit more about about what they need to do to clinch later. But your thoughts on this game, Danny?
Yeah, classic rivalry in the Big Ten. A lot of good and tough memories in the matchup. So definitely big win for Iowa.
Pig Bear?
Huge win for Iowa. They're alive still for the Big Ten championship.
To the victory bell. We have two to talk about. First, 13-5. You know something weird happened when a 5 is in the final score. North Carolina improving to 7-4, winning over a now 5-6 Duke. A Duke team who a year ago was playing the conference championship game, but now is struggling to try and make a bowl. They need to beat Wake Forest in order to make that happen. Danny?
Yeah, definitely. Duke just needs some help from trying to get this, especially how their last game is against Wake Forest. So Duke is gonna need some help trying to get in there, but who knows? And good job for North Carolina for winning this traditional basketball matchup.
Pig Bear?
Well, in a baseball score in between basketball schools, the Tar Heels get it done over the Blue Devils.
Good way to put it. Another victory bell. This one from the Pac-12. UCLA now improves to 7-4, winning over USC. I believe this is their first win over the Trojans since 2021. UCLA ends their season against San Diego State. USC has Notre Dame on the docket. Your thoughts, Danny?
Yeah, classic rivalry in Indiana. Purdue pulling off the big upset, so good job for them, and hopefully either one of these teams can make it to a bowl game. Who knows?
Wrong game. This is USC UCLA.
Battle of LA, the victory bell, great matchup. Love how they always wear the Color Rush game uniforms there, so definitely good game.
We got a bit of a guest to the show. Two more games to talk about first. 38-28, Washington improves 7-4 with an upset over a top 5 Oregon. The Ducks fall to 9-2 after the 38-28 loss at home. Their final game, of course, Oregon State. Washington ends against Wazoo. Thoughts on what might be the biggest upset of the week, Danny?
Yeah, definitely potentially the biggest upset of the weekend. Great game from Washington. Washington's only one game away from clinching the I believe it's called like the Northwestern Cup.
Is that against the Washington Oregon schools?
Yep. It's a trophy between all 4 of them.
When did this start?
A long time ago. I'll get some more facts about that.
All right, Pig Bear?
There's one thing I've heard that was true recently. Oregon's one kryptonite is Washington. And it's true. There's no denying that now.
Oregon and Washington is probably the most passionate rivalry in all. I think I said this last week, but it's probably the most rowdy and passionate rivalry in all of college football that doesn't have a name. You guys have got to give it a name up there. You got to come up with something. Come up with something, or else I will. Let's wrap things up. Battle in the Rocky. What was that?
It's called the Northwest Championship between the 4 schools.
That's between the 4 of them, but Oregon Washington specifically doesn't have a name.
Oh, they don't have a trophy specifically, but there's a combined rivalry name for all 4.
Oregon Washington specifically. You guys got to get a name, or I'll name it for you. I'll call it the Ow Cup. Because when they play each other and a team beats you, you're like, ow.
There are 2 fan names from it. The Border War and the Cascade Clash.
I like the Cascade Clash. I like that one. That might be what we go with unofficially. But let's wrap it up with the with 2 games. BYU 21-14 on the road over Colorado, quietly eliminating the Buffs from bowl eligibility while also keeping them alive in the chase for the conference championship. BYU is a quiet 9-2. I think I like the Cougars to eventually win the division, but you would need them to. You need to win, obviously, and that's actually you don't need to win because your next game is a non-con matchup against BYU. non-conference
little bit
matchup
more.
against Utah, but the big game, of course, you need to root for Iowa State in Farmageddon. We'll talk more about that later. Dan, your thoughts on BYU, Colorado?
Yeah, BYU, Colorado, the new Western matchup between them, great matchup. I mean, these teams, they seem like they would now gain maybe a little bit of some history, maybe a rivalry between each other. Who knows? Hopefully, something interesting could come up between them.
Maybe, but that's a long-term goal. Pig Bear?
Got a great name for the rivalry, the Rumble in the Rockies.
Where have I heard that before?
Yeah.
Up next.
Colorado should hire Leon Sandcastle. If you get the reference.
I don't get the reference, but it's funny nonetheless. Let's move on to Division 2. The D3 playoffs, of course, we talked about last week. Let's talk about the D2 playoffs, which start in 2KU this week. These playoffs different from how Division 3 does it. You have brackets of 10 teams, 40 in total. The first and second seeds get byes, and they get the winners of the 8, 9, and 7 and 10, respectively. And they're sorted into 4 regions: the East, the South, the Central, and the West. Let's start off with that East region. The number 1 seed from the East is the number 6 team in the country, Shepherd of West Virginia, playing out of the Mountain East. They get the winner of Bowie State from the CIAA and Gettysburg of the Northeast 10. On the other side of the bracket, the 4-5 New Haven taking on number 19 Notre Dame of Ohio, who I want to shout out specifically because IRL, that school is closing. Has closed at the end of this season. Never forget. Meanwhile, the 3 seed, number 17 Virginia Union, taking on the 6 seed, number 25 Millersville, who, if you've been paying attention, actually dropped down from a short stint in D1 this year. Number 2, the 2 seed is number 9 West Virginia State. They get the winner of Muhlenberg of the Northeast 10 and the PSAC's Bloomsburg. Now to the South. The number 1 here is number 3 Valdosta State. They get the winner of UNC Pembroke and not the expert's own Rocket City from the Conference Carolinas and the Gulf Star, respectively. Number 4, the 4 seed, number 24 Pig Bear's own Blue Ridge Bruins of South Carolina, taking on number 16 West Florida as a 5 seed. Number 14 Carson Newman and number 23 Delta State are your 3-6. And the 2 seed is number 10 Lenore Rhine. They get the winner of Morehouse and Mississippi College, who I think is dropping football after this season too, so special shout out to them. On to the Central, where the number 1 team in the country gets the number 1 seed. That would be reigning champions Pittsburgh State. The Gorillas, bit of an in-joke within our group as well. They get the winner of number 15 Central Missouri and number 18 Upper Iowa. This Central Division is stacked. Every team here is ranked. The 4-5 is number 12 McKendree and number 20 Ohio Dominican. The 3-6, number 11 Missouri State and number 7 Missouri Western. And the 2 seed, another former D1 experiment, number 5 Grand Valley State. The Lakers getting the winner of Central Oklahoma, who's number 13, and number 21 Truman State. And now on to the West. Number 2 Black Hills State. If you remember, I'm trying to remember. Travis Heller is the guy I'm thinking of. Heisman finalist last season. Huge transfer to Clemson. He was part of the reason they were in contention for the ACC last year. He came from Black Hills State after putting up monster numbers there. And he put up some great numbers in Death Valley. But Black Hills State getting the winner of Southern Arkansas and Midwestern State. Meanwhile, the 4-5, Western Oregon, and number 22, Arkansas Monticello. The Boll Weevils, as they're known. won the title back in 2022. The 3 seed, number 8, Texas A&M Kingsville. Keep an eye on this team. They might be jumping to D1 at some point. They'll take on the 6 seed, Colorado Mines. And our final number 2 seed, Arkansas Tech, who's number 4 in the country, gets the winner of Central Washington and Chadron State of Nebraska. All right, I know that's a lot, but let's see if we can go region by region. We'll start with the West, since that'll probably be fresh in your minds. Who do you guys have winning the West?
I like Kingsville, Texas A&M Kingsville.
All right, I'm feeling the higher seed. I'm thinking Black Hill State takes it. Pig Bear?
Give me Black Hill State also.
All right. Also, watch out, Arkansas Tech. They might have a D1 move in the future. We have to watch the IRL headlines, because those might affect 2KU. Moving on to the Central, Pittsburgh State the favorites, but also every team is ranked, so really anyone here has a shot. This is one of the most stacked divisions we've ever seen in D2 playoffs. I think I like Pittsburgh State to make it to the finals, but I think Grand Valley has a chance to pull off the upset. Danny?
Give me Grand Valley.
Pig Bear?
I like them.
Grand Valley.
Going Grand Valley all the way. On to the South. Valdosta State played in the championship last season, losing to Pittsburgh State. I think they can run the table and make it back to the championship game again. Give me Valdosta State. Danny?
Give me Valdosta.
Pig Bear? You going your Blue Ridge, or you think Valdosta State's got it? All right. If they get past their first opponents, they'll play each other. Blue Ridge is ready for a D1 move next season. They'll be playing in the UAC come 2025. Let's wrap up with the East. Shepherd, the favorites here, but I think I like West Virginia State to run the table. Danny?
Give me Shepherd.
Pig Bear?
Give me Shepherd.
All right. The final 4 teams will be reseeded, playing in a neutral site. The championship, I believe this season, is in McKinney, Texas. And that is D2. I forgot to post the D3 finals. I will do that to Scores and Schedules. Or we'll post the updated brackets, rather, to Scores and Schedules. So keep an eye out for those. But now let's go over our conference championship scenarios. First, I want to talk about every team who has clinched thus far. And then I'll let Danny go off on the scenarios that can still happen. Won't talk about the MEAC and SWAC yet. Those are for a different day. But right now, let's start with the American. The AAC championship is now set. Delaware and Charlotte, both teams who started the conference after defecting from the Big East, will be playing in a championship their final time together, as Charlotte has now accepted the invitation to the Conference USA, as we talked about last week. Both teams on different sides of the spectrum. Charlotte, of course, the reigning American champions, trying to win it back-to-back. Meanwhile, Delaware, they haven't won a conference championship of any kind since they're in the FCS. They last won it in 2009, back in the CAA. Meanwhile, the ACC championship game is set. Wake Forest and Georgia Tech are ready to go at it. Wake, this is their first appearance in the ACC title game. Their last title, you have to go all the way back to 1981. Only Duke has waited a longer time for a conference championship. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech, this is their first season. No biggity. I almost said the no diggity. I'd like to bag it up. But Georgia Tech, no biggie. This is their first year in the conference, and they're going to the championship game. However, it's been a while since they've won one. Their last title was in 2017 in the SEC. Temple, as we mentioned with the win of Rutgers, clinches a spot in the Big East title game. They won it back in 2022. That was their last time winning it, and their first time winning it, you have to go back to 1994, when they shared it with Miami. They have 2 titles all time. They'll get the winner of Cincy, South Florida. We'll talk about that later. Michigan has clinched for the Big East. They have 33 Big Ten titles all time, trying to win their 34th. It's actually been a little bit. Their last one was in 2020. In the championship game, Michigan is 4-2 all time. Their last appearance was in 2021, and they lost it to Indiana. Big 12 still open. The Conference USA, though, is all set. Rice and Southern Miss. Rice has only won one conference championship in the CUSA. You have to go all the way back to 2006 for it. That was also their last BCS appearance. They'll be joining the SEC next year. Meanwhile, Southern Miss, for a team as prevalent as they are and for getting as many wins as they have, they've never won the Conference USA. They'll be seeking their first conference title this coming week, or this coming next week. The MAC West. Remember that fun scenario we talked about yesterday? Well, it didn't last very long. Northern Illinois now clinching it. Interestingly, they've been a member for quite some time, but they've only won 3 MAC titles, all of which in the last 15 years. 2012, 2019, and their last time in that scenario, of course, 2021, the year they ran the table. The Missouri Valley Championship is set. Southern Illinois, the reigning Missouri Valley champions, are ready to go back to St. Louis for this one. They have 11 championships all time. They need one more to break a tie with Drake to become the winningest team remaining in the conference. Meanwhile, North Dakota State has 3 titles, all of which in the last 5 years, 2019, 2020, and 2022. The Mountain West is all set. Boise State. This is their last Mountain West season. They've won 4 titles in their only 13 years of being here. 2012, 2016, 2020, and their natty year, of course, in 2022. Meanwhile, San Jose State, on the opposite side of the scale, this is their first Mountain West season. Their last championship, you have to go back to 2012 in the WAC. The Pac-12 championship was set since last week. This is, of course, Utah's first Pac-12 season. Their last championship came only last year. They won the Mountain West in their last year being there. Meanwhile, Arizona's last Pac-10 championship, you have to go back to 1993 to see that. I have something in my eye, pardon me. Tulane clinches the SEC championship. They're accustomed to long title droughts. They have 4 titles all time, which included the very first SEC title in 1933, 2 titles in the 50s in 51 and 57, and then they had to wait all the way until 2002 to get their 4th, and they haven't won one since. They played in the championship last season, losing to Florida, but now they're the favorite this time around. The SoCon is set. James Madison and Chattanooga, that's been set since last week as well. This is JMU's final SoCon season, their last conference title. Again, you have to go back to the CAA. They last won one in 2014. Chattanooga, their last SoCon title was all the way back in 2001. They've won 3 all time. Their other 2 coming back-to-back in 1979 and 1980. The Southland Championship sees 2 teams in their last seasons in the conference for the second straight year, funny enough. Hardin-Simmons and West Texas are playing each other for the SLC title in San Antonio, pardon me. Hardin-Simmons has been a founding member of the conference, but they've only won 2 titles in it in 1980 and 81. They have had a long drought since their last conference title. Meanwhile, West Texas has had an equally long drought. This is their final Southland season. Their last conference title, you have to go back to their Missouri Valley days in 1983. One team is going to end one of the longest droughts in college football for conference titles. Meanwhile, the Sun Belt. Arkansas State is set to go. They're all locked into their conference championship spot. They have 3 titles all time, 2001, 2013, and their last 10 years ago in 2014. And La Tech Hawaii, that's been locked since last week. Their last conference championship was in the Southland in 2021. Hawaii, in their final season of the WAC membership, their last WAC title was in 2020. All right, after all that, I'm going to hand it now off to Denny, where he'll talk about all the scenarios for the teams who can get into the conference championships. Danny, take it away.
All right, so first we go to the Big East. Only two teams are in the contention: Cincinnati and USF. What will determine it will all depend on the war in I-4, USF UCF. If USF beats UCF, USF clinches. If UCF beats USF, Cincinnati clinches.
It's as simple as that.
And it's all going to be downhill from here. Okay. First up, we go to the Big Ten, where we have 3 teams who are in contention for it: Iowa, Indiana, and Ohio State. Let's first start with the easiest one, Iowa. Iowa just needs Ohio State to lose against Michigan. Pretty simple, pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
For Ohio State, they need to beat Michigan and have Indiana lose to Purdue. And then for Indiana, they need Ohio State to basically lose, and they need to make sure that, if I'm in this correctly, they need to make sure they have a higher ranking than Iowa.
We'll see how the top 25 looks and how easy that'll be coming up.
Next up is the wide open Big 12. Let's start with the South Division because that's the easiest one to explain. There's only 3 teams that are raising: Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma. First game that'll determine it is the Lone Star Showdown, Texas against Texas A&M. If Texas A&M wins, they clinch it. If Texas wins, then it'll go to the winner of Bedlam. And up next is the North. For Kansas State to clinch it, they just need to beat Iowa State in Farmageddon. And here comes the little tricky part between BYU and Iowa State, because if Iowa State beat Kansas State, we'll go down a 3-way rabbit hole, where because they all have beaten each other, it's now going to be based on highest ranking, which at this point is Kansas State, barely. Unless BYU loses. So. But also, sorry, I read that wrong, but for the rankings, it'll eliminate whoever's the lowest, and then from there,
Whoever's
it'll be
ranked.
up to the remaining 2. And that'll go back to the top one for tiebreaker. And who will be in that tiebreaker? Well, BYU beat Kansas State.
All
Next
right.
up, we go to the MAC East. It's just Ohio and Miami. For Miami, Ohio to make it, they need to beat Ball State. For
Easy
Ohio
as
to
that.
make it, they need Ball State to beat Miami.
So if Ball
Not
State
as tough
wins,
If
so
Ball State wins, Ohio makes it.
even if they lose,
Well, Ohio needs to win as well.
so they need a win and a Miami if Ohio lost. What would that put Miami at? 6-6?
Yes.
We could have a 6-6 conference champion in back-to-back years. Remember, Troy won the Sun Belt in 2016 or 2023 over Florida Atlantic to become, I believe, the first champion in the history of the 2KU to win to win a conference championship without being 500. At least entering the game. All right.
That's going to be fun.
Next is the SEC.
The SEC, there are 3 teams who are still left: Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Bama.
And Bama.
Yep, Bama's at 5-2 in conference.
Oh no.
Alright, so for Auburn to make it, they just need to win the Iron Bowl. Just as simple. For Vanderbilt to make it, they need to beat Tennessee and have Bama beat Auburn. And for Bama to make it, they need to win the Iron Bowl and have Tennessee beat Vandy. For the Southland, West Texas A&M and Central Arkansas are in the contention. For West Texas A&M, win. For Central Arkansas, they need to win and have West Texas A&M lose.
Oh, so that's unclinched. So that I had that as clinched, but Central Arkansas still has a chance.
Yep.
All right. Sunbelt East is still up for grabs. Talk to us about that, Danny.
Yep, they
Also,
are.
reconnect your controller.
Whoops. All right, so they are currently
There you go.
the 4 teams in contention:
Still.
App State, Florida International, Florida Atlantic, and Middle Tennessee. All right, so for App State to make it, they just need to beat Georgia Southern. Just as simple. They already have the tiebreaker wins against FIU, Middle Tennessee, and FAU. For FAU to make it, they need to beat FIU and have App State and Middle Tennessee lose. For FIU to make it, they need to beat FAU and have App State lose. For Middle Tennessee, they need to beat Western Kentucky and have App State and FIU lose.
Wide open in the Sun Belt. And I believe that's it for any teams that can clinch right now.
Correct.
Let's quickly go through who do you think's going to be those other teams starting in the Big East. I have USF beating UCF. It's in Tampa. I think the Bulls have it. I think they're making the conference championship. Danny?
Give me Cincinnati making. I think UCF will beat USF.
Pigbear?
Give me Cincinnati making it also.
Up next, Big Ten championship game. I believe the situation for Indiana is just winning and having Ohio State lose, and I think that will happen. I think Michigan beats Ohio State, and I think Indiana beats Purdue, and I think IU is getting a rematch against Michigan in the championship game. Danny?
I agree. I think it's going to be Indiana who's going to make it.
Pigbear?
Give me Indiana making it.
All right, the Big 12 championship. This is going to be completely open. I think ultimately Texas has been struggling this year. I think it's Texas A&M can win this and make a Bedlam take Bedlam out of the picture. Basically, I think Texas A&M wins the South, and I think they get in the North. I like Iowa State. I like how they played against Oklahoma State. I think they could pull the upset against K-State, and with that, I believe with tiebreakers that will put BYU in the championship game. Give me Texas A&M BYU. Danny?
Give me Texas A&M Kansas State. I like Kansas State. I think they're going to beat Iowa State in Manhattan.
Pigbear?
Give me Oklahoma State, Iowa State.
A rematch. How would Iowa State make it? They just need to beat Kansas State?
No, they can't make it. It's just going to be spoiler unless...
Kansas State. Oklahoma State, Kansas State.
Okay. MAC championship. I feel like Miami's got it on lock. I hope they have it on lock. Danny?
Miami. I'm going to say Miami.
Big Bear?
Miami.
All right. Of Ohio, of course. SEC championship game. Vandy, Auburn, Alabama are the three teams between each other that can make it. I think the Auburn Tigers get it done fast against Alabama. Danny?
Give me Auburn as well.
Pig Bear?
Give me Auburn.
Let's wrap with the Southland. I think West Texas has it on lock. Unless anyone else disagrees, I think we can move to the Sun Belt.
I have Southland. I have West Texas winning.
Okay. But now for a really interesting race in the Sun Belt. FAU, App, FIU, Middle Tennessee, all with chances of making it. I like FIU to get it. I think FIU could get it, but on tiebreakers, I think App State is the one who moves to the championship game. Danny?
Give me App State. They have the easiest route.
Big Bear?
Roll nearest. Give me App.
All right. Now let's hand it over to Danny once again for the teams who can clinch a bowl game this coming week. Danny?
Yep, so better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Because bowl season's coming to town. There are only a few teams who have five wins at this point. Those teams... You want me to talk about the bowl bound teams or just the teams you need to win to make it?
Give us the matchups of who can make it with a win.
Okay, so up first, let's start off in the ACC. First, we got Duke. Duke needs to beat Wake Forest at home. Next is Dave Show, who needs to beat Miami. And speaking of Miami, Miami is also at 5 wins. They need to beat Dave Show. And finally, we have Boston College, who has to go to win at Syracuse. Next up in the American, we only have 2 teams. We have Eastern Kentucky and North Alabama. Eastern Kentucky needs to beat Austin P on the road. North Alabama needs to win at home against UGF. In the Big East, we got Louisville. Louisville is going to be going on the road to Kentucky. We got a 3-team showdown in the Big Ten. Northwestern, they have to win at Illinois. Notre Dame, who has to win at USC. And finally, Purdue, who has to win at home against Indiana. Next up, we got in the Big 12, we only have 2 teams. One is Missouri, who is on currently a 6-game losing streak. They have to play at Kansas. And Texas, who has to win on the road at Texas A&M. Conference USA doesn't have any teams who are 5 wins. The rest of the teams are either clinched or at the 4-win spots. Next up, we got the Ivy League, where only Princeton is at the 5-win margin. In the MAC, we technically have 4 teams, and I'll explain a little bit. That up first, we have Central Michigan, who needs to win at Western Michigan. We have Bowling Green, who has to win at Toledo. And speaking of, Toledo needs to beat Bowling Green at home. And finally, John Hopkins. You might be wondering, wait, John Hopkins has 6 wins. But they are stuck in transition. And according to the FCS to FBS transition rules we established here in the 2KU last season,
Mm-hmm.
for you to be guaranteed to make it into a bowl game, you need to have a winning record, so 7 wins. If there aren't enough bowl spots, they'll automatically get in if they're 6-6. But definitely, they need to get 7 wins to guarantee it. And so for them to make it in, they need to beat Duquesne.
I believe right now, all of our bowl spots are. I believe right now we should be projected to have enough bowl spots, so it might be difficult to get them in.
We currently have 86 clinch and 102 spots.
All right.
In the Missouri Valley, we have 3 teams. Indiana State, who has to play against Illinois State to clinch it. And Illinois State has to beat Indiana State to clinch it. And next up, it's South Dakota, who needs to go to South Dakota State. No teams in the Mountain West, but in the pack, we have 2 teams. And, well, it's going to be one of the best matches for a bowl.
The
At
big
end,
game.
Yep. Where at the end, you're going to be saying, the band is out on the field! The band is out on the field!
Are we
Count
in?
like it's Stanford!
We're not
Imagine
in
that
Berkeley
game
this
being
time.
an ACC rivalry. Never could happen.
Yeah.
Glad we live.
The game takes place in Palo Alto, but the game is going to determine who's going bowling and who is staying home.
I know the trophies. I know the trophies and acts, but they should also get that trombone that got bent.
Yeah. The smash trombone. Next
Continue.
up in the SoCon, because there are no SEC teams, we have 3 teams. First is Washington Lee, who has to win at VMI. And,
The Battle of Lexington.
whoops, I forgot. VMI is also in that 5-win category. So, VMI, Washington Lee, congrats. You're playing for a bowl spot.
It would be VMI's first in our 2KU stream days, at least.
Yep. Next up, we got William and Mary. William and Mary needs to win at home against Richmond. And finally, the last spot is going to, or the last potential spot could be the Citadel, who has to play at Furman. Next up in the Southland, we have 3 teams. We have Texas Arlington, who has to go to West Texas. We have Southeastern Louisiana, who has to play at home against Nichols. And Houston Christian, who has to play on the road at Arden Simmons. Sure. Yeah. All right. Next up in the Sun Belt, we have Western Kentucky, who is playing against Middle Tennessee. Next up, you have South Alabama, who needs to play against Troy to get to a bowl game. And you have Troy, who needs to beat South Alabama to make it to a bowl game. And finally, up next we got the WAC. The WAC, there are only two teams. Sam Houston, who needs to play against Stephen F. Austin to make it to a bowl game. And finally, it is North Texas, who has to play against undefeated Rice to finish the season.
Uh-oh. And that will do for that. Up next is our top 25. Starting off, let's talk about the top two, which remain unchanged. Michigan, Utah are still number 1 and number 2. Number 3, Cincinnati is up there. Number 4 with their win over Iowa State. Oklahoma State is there, and number 5 is now Penn State, back into the top 5. Penn State ends with Michigan State. Oklahoma State can make it to the conference championship with a TAMU loss and a win over Oklahoma. Number 6, I believe they weren't in the top 10 last week, so this might, or no, they were last week, but this is the highest ranking in school history for Wake Forest, who is now your number 6 team in the country. They're 10-1. They are on the outside looking in for natty consideration. Should everything go to chaos above them. Tulane is in that same boat. They're now 10-1. Out of the SEC, they're number 7. Number 8, Ohio State has a big one coming up. Michigan on the docket. Number 9, UCF can make it to the conference championship with a win over South Florida. And Rice, now in the top 10 for the first time in 50 years. Probably even more than that since their Southwest days. The Rice Owls are 11-0, as is number 11 San Jose State, highest ranking in school history. They can make an undefeated season happen with a win over arch rival Fresno State. Oregon, falling all the way to 12. They're now 9-2 out of the Pac-12. Their next game is against Oregon State. Texas A&M is number 13. They can clinch a conference championship spot with a win on Friday against Texas. Clemson plays rival South Carolina in the ACC in the Palmetto Bowl to try and get to 10 wins. They're number 14. Are they 9-2 or are they 8-3? I don't remember.
8-3.
8-3.
All right, they're 8-3. They're trying to get to 9 wins. Indiana, number 15. A win and Ohio State loss punches their ticket to Indy. Probably the shortest commute of any team in the Big Ten to the Big Ten title game. Kansas State and BYU are the top 2 teams in the conference, or the top 2 teams in the North Division vying for a spot in Arlington, and fittingly enough, they're right next to each other on the rankings at 16 and 17. K-State makes it with a win. BYU makes it with a K-State loss. BYU, meanwhile, has to play Utah, the number 2 team in the country, in Provo. Number 18 is Iowa, looking on the outside, though they have a chance to make it to the championship game against Michigan. I believe they make it with the Ohio State loss and an Indiana loss to Purdue. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Auburn is number 19. They can make the SEC championship with a win over Alabama. Number 20, Oklahoma. They play OK State, who's number 4 in the country. They got taken. They had a bit of a shock against Iowa State, nearly losing to the Cyclones. Oklahoma needs to beat State, and they need TAMU to lose on Friday to Texas. Now number 21, Wisconsin. They're out of the Big Ten race, but they could still finish 9-3 with a win over rival Minnesota. Iowa plays Nebraska, I believe,
Yeah.
to end the year. Number 22, one of two WAC teams we have here, Louisiana Tech. They're 10-1. They finished their WAC slate. They're already locked into the championship. They get Arkansas State, who is looking to try and get a 10th win this week. Number 23, into the top 25, Georgia Tech. I'm telling y'all, you guys have been sleeping on this Georgia Tech squad. They're 9-2. I think they're going to skyrocket if they get the win over Georgia, as I think they might end up actually being a potential shocker in the ACC championship. Look out for the Yellow Jackets to rise up the rankings quickly eventually. USF could be the same way. They just need to beat UCF, and they're off to the championship game in New York. They're now number 24. Hawaii into the top 25. I believe they haven't been ranked since week 2. I believe they were ranked, or at least considered for rankings, really early on in the year, but they're 10-1. Their last game of the season, I believe, is against Pacific. They're already locked into the WAC championship. The other teams in consideration are Arizona, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, James Madison, Florida State, Chattanooga, Temple, Alabama, Michigan State, UTSA, Columbia, and Virginia Tech, I guess. All right. What are your guys' thoughts on this top 25?
Yeah, really cool top 25. A lot of fun. A lot of fun seeing the teams going up and down. Very interesting. Some interesting moves, but definitely good to note.
I see some teams in the next up who depending on results are probably going to shoot up by next week. I'm pretty sure Temple's guaranteed to shoot up into consideration next week should either USF or UCF lose, because they're already locked into a championship game. Should all hell break loose in the SEC, Alabama is certainly going to be ranked. I think Tennessee might slip in should things happen. But Pig Bear, your thoughts on the top 25?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think Georgia Tech's a very good team, and should watch out for them.
Mm-hmm. People were writing them off, but they dug themselves out of a hole, and they're in position to shock the country, as they did 2 years ago. Remember, they finished 12-2 2 years ago. But now, all that's left to talk about is our final big slate of the week, or final big week slate of the year. This is it, the final regular season week. It's make it or break it. It's crazy how fast the football season flies. But Ole Miss and Mississippi State will get a start at the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving. Late night game. Both teams are 3-8, so all this is for is bragging rights. Ole Miss favored on the road. I like the Rebels. Danny, who do you got?
Give me the Bulldogs. I kind of like them.
Pig Bear?
Repeat the game.
Egg Bowl, Ole Miss at Mississippi State.
Give me Ole Miss.
Up next, let's talk about some Friday night action. Actually, I believe this might be a Saturday game. I'm not sure. But either Friday or Saturday, we start with the Backyard Brawl, another bragging right matchup. 8-3, West Virginia heads on the road to 3-8 Pitt. West Virginia wins, but close. I have it. Danny?
I have West Virginia winning as well. It's
Take-
Friday.
Give me West Virginia.
All right. That same day, the Big East-South will be decided on the War on I-4. UCF trying to make a conference championship or UCF eliminated from the conference championship, but they're trying to stop their arch rivals from doing so, from making it. UCF has not lost to USF in the 2KU era. Can they keep their streak alive? I think USF wins at home over the Knights. Danny?
Let's go Knights. Give me UCF.
Pig Bear?
Give me UCF.
A win for UCF would put Cincinnati in the conference championship game. Up next, there are plenty of rivalries that could describe college football. There are plenty of games you could think of that are the essence of the sport, but there's no game bigger than the game. Ohio State and Michigan, the 9-2 Buckeyes, take on an 11-0 number 1 Michigan squad. Ohio State ranked number 8. Top 10 matchup. Michigan favored in this one. I like the Wolverines to remain unbeaten entering the conference championship game. Danny?
Give me the Wolverines to win this one.
Big Bear.
Give me the Buckeyes.
Up next, Michigan State at 8-3, hosting 9-2 Penn State. Neither team could make the conference championships, but Michigan State could play spoiler to a top 5 Penn State squad and try and get themselves back into the top 25. I actually like Michigan State in an upset. The Spartans have played really well against Penn State, even in their losses. They lost to Penn State last season, but of course they beat them the year before. Michigan State won the title 2 years ago. That's not too far in the past. I like Michigan State in an upset. Danny?
Give me Penn State. I think Penn State will squeak by through them.
Big Bear?
Give me Penn State.
Up next, let's talk about the Big 12 slate. Starting on Friday night, Texas and Texas A&M. Texas needs a win to make it to a bowl game. Texas A&M needs a win to make it to the Big 12 championship. Tama's last appearance was back in 2018. Texas A&M wasn't bowling last season. Their last bowl appearance was a loss to Northwestern in 2022. Texas A&M, the favorites at home. I like Tamu to win and lock themselves in the championship game. Danny?
Give me Texas A&M. I agree.
Pig Bear?
Texas A&M.
Meanwhile, should Texas lose, it then goes down to Bedlam for that other spot. Oklahoma State heads to Norman to play Oklahoma. The Sooners have won the last 3 straight appearances in this rivalry. I like Oklahoma State to keep that streak going, give them the 4th OK State. And should Texas A&M lose, that would bring them to their 3rd straight conference championship game. Danny?
Give me Michigan.
You're thinking of wrong game. Oklahoma State.
Give me. You know what? I really like the Sooners, and I think Oklahoma will win it.
Big Bear?
Give me Oklahoma winning it.
Up next, staying in the Big 12, Iowa State and Kansas State. Farmageddon. K-State with a win, they're off to the championship game. Meanwhile, should they lose, it's BYU taking their spot. Meanwhile, the 7-4 Cyclones looking for their best season since 2008, trying to get to 8 wins on the year. K-State the favorites. I liked how Iowa State played in their game against Oklahoma State. I think I like the Cyclones in an upset. Danny?
Give me the Wildcats.
Big Bear?
Give me the Wildcats.
Next up, done with the Big 12, now to the SEC, the Iron Bowl, another essential rivalry in college football. Bama and Auburn. Alabama with a win and a Vandy loss makes it to the SEC championship. Meanwhile, Auburn, they just got to win and they're in. I like Auburn to win and clinch the SEC championship. Danny?
Give me Auburn as well.
Pig Bear?
Give me Auburn.
Up next, should Bama upset Auburn in Auburn, Alabama, in Jordan Hare? It now goes down to whether or not Vandy at 8-3 can beat Tennessee, who's also 8-3. The Commodores are actually not favored in this one. Tennessee is in Knoxville, Neal and Gray. The Vols have been historically very dominant in this rivalry. I believe Tennessee has won every single game in this rivalry in the 2KU era. But this is a different Vandy. They went bowling last season. They, of course, are 8-3 now, looking for their first 9-win season since the 1990s. Give me Tennessee to win this, though. Danny?
Give me Vanderbilt to win this.
Pig Bear?
Give me Vandy.
All right, from here on out, there aren't any championship implication matchups, but some fun ones you should watch nonetheless. Arkansas State and Louisiana Tech. This might be the best matchup nobody's talking about. A 9-2 Red Wolf squad taking on a 10-1 La Tech Bulldogs team. Remember, these two teams played for a year in the same conference, 2022. The 2022, the Bulldogs had a short and unsuccessful stint in the Sun Belt, La Tech, the favorites at home in Ruston, the home of the legendary Neutral Milk Hotel. Give me the Bulldogs to win it and improve to 11-1, their first 11-win season in team history. Danny,
Give me La Tech as well.
Pig Bear,
There'll be no airplanes over the sea. Give me Arkansas State.
good one, good one. The Commonwealth Cup, Vatech has struggled all year, but they can make it worth it if they get revenge against Virginia. Remember last season, an 11-0 squad went to Charlottesville and got upset by a Virginia team who snuck in, beat the Hokies, and then beat Duke to win the ACC championship before getting throttled in the Orange Bowl by Boston College. Virginia Tech has a chance to get even on Saturday night. Give me Virginia Tech to do that, do just that, and get to 7-5 on the year. Danny? Danny?
Give me Virginia Tech as well.
Big Bear.
Give me the Wahoos. Give me Virginia.
Staying in the ACC, North Carolina and North Carolina State. The last leg of Tobacco Road to go over. There's also Duke Wake Forest this week. But with more standing implications on the line, a 7-4 UNC takes on a 6-5 NC State. NC State started 6-0, but have dropped their last 5. I think momentum is not in their favor, but it is in UNC's. Give me the Tar Heels. Danny?
Give me the Tar Heels as well.
Pig Bear?
Tar. Give me UNC.
All going. When you look at Cal and Stanford, you don't necessarily think of it as a big game, but looking at their resumes and looking at their history, all you have to say is the band is out on the field, and immediately you get images of champions. Stanford, one of the winningest teams in 2KU history. Cal has had a long dormant dynasty, but right now they're fighting for a bowl berth. Cal 5-6, Stanford 5-6. The game is in Palo Alto. Stanford has been the better performing team in recent memory, though I think Cal beat them last season. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Stanford gets the win here. Danny?
What did you ask, Joey?
Did Cal beat Stanford last season?
Let me look that up.
The game was in Berkeley. While he's looking, Pig Bear, who do you have? Cal, Stanford?
Give me Cal.
You got Cal, I got Stanford. Danny, who's your pick?
I really like Cal. I think Cal is gonna win this, and last season, Cal won.
Yeah. Cal beat Stanford last
Cal
year,
wins
but Stanford has been historically dominant in this rivalry. Meanwhile, Oregon and Oregon State. Oregon State already bowl eligible. Meanwhile, Oregon trying to bounce back from that Washington loss. I like Oregon to win this game, get to 10-2, get another 10-win season under their belt. I believe it would be their third in the last 4 years. Danny?
Give me Oregon to win this.
Pig Bear?
Give me Oregon.
Territorial Cup up now. An 8-3 Arizona takes on a 3-8 Arizona State. Arizona, the heavy favorites on the road in Tempe. Give me the Wildcats to win it. They've already clinched their spot in the championship against Utah. Danny?
Give me Arizona.
Pig Bear.
Give me Arizona State.
State in upset. Now up next, the Apple Cup from Seattle. The Washington Huskies, fresh off of huge win over Oregon, take on a 3-8 Wazoo, who played in the championship game last season but have struggled all year. Washington, the favorites in this one. I like the Huskies to win it. Danny?
Give me the Huskies as well.
Pig Bear?
Give me the Huskies.
All right. And now for our final game of the week of the year. Our next streams will be big marathon ones for the championships, for the bowl game days. We won't have a single game dedicated stream until the Natty.
And Army Navy.
Army Navy, yeah. But let's savor it while we're here. And the game we got this week, another essential rivalry, albeit one that doesn't get a lot of screen time. How about Utah BYU, the Holy War? IRL, we had a classic this year in this one. Does the 2KU have that in them as well? Utah 11-0, the number 2 team in the country. They got to head to Provo to take on number 17 BYU. A loss here doesn't necessarily doom Utah, but it will make their championship game a must-win scenario. Meanwhile, BYU, their aspirations are BCS or bust. A win over Utah would probably near lock them into a BCS bowl at the least. Their hopes are still holding on to if K-State can beat Iowa State or not. I think Utah is the favorite in this one, and I think Utah does win to improve to 12-0. Danny?
Give me the upset. Give me BYU.
Pig Bear, send us home.
Give me Utah and cockle-doodle-doo, cockle-doodle-doo. Carolina Gamecocks to hell with you. Clemson will win that game.
You're picking Carolina Clemson. All right. And that'll do it for today's stream. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll, of course, be here on Saturday for the 2KU Game of the Week. I believe we'll have some streams, or some Discord exclusive streams coming Thursday and Friday. The Egg Bowl, as well as potentially 2 games on Friday. UCF, USF, and Texas A&M. If we want to do those. But, that'll do it for us here tonight. Thank you all so much for watching, and so long!